Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. So today we're going to be talking about the gear and business sides of music. Ben Kleinman, founder of Ray Raydecker Audio Cables, is my guest. Ben talks about what music really flipped the switch for him, and not being a musician, how he started immersing himself in music by booking artists. After some misadventures, he started playing guitar himself and became obsessed with gear. All of this fed into what will become his current foray into music, Ray Raydecker Audio Cables, although that wasn't the first name of his company. So why did he change it? And who is Ray Raydecker? Ben talks about the realities of trying to get artists to use your gear and the amazing friends of Ray Raydecker who do use his stuff. He also talks about the difficulties of balancing a hobby/business that you're passionate about and the rest of your real life, like day jobs and families. Ben creates beautiful cables by hand, and each one is guaranteed. So if you're into gear, need cables, like concert photography, or any combination of those, this is the show for you. And check out rayraydecker.com to buy handmade, guaranteed, unique audio cables. And check out Ray Raydecker on Instagram for products and Ben's concert photos. Check the podcast out at Performance ANX on Instagram and Twitter. Reach out there or through the Performance Anxiety Pod at gmail.com. You can support the show through performanceanx.threadless.com for our gear, or ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety if you'd like to send us a cup of coffee. And please check out our sponsors. I hope you enjoy a different side of music with Ben Kleinman of Ray Raydecker on Performance Anxiety, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
This is Ben Kleinman, owner-creator of Ray Raydecker Audio Cables. You are listening to... I have to write the name down. I spaced on that thing. Hold on, I have to just have it in front of me. And that wouldn't have been an issue if you didn't say that I can do it multiple times. Hold on, I just have to write Performance Anxiety here. This is Ben Kleinman, owner... This is Ben Kleinman, owner and creator of Ray Raydecker Audio Cables. You are listening to Performance Anxiety Podcast. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, how you been, man? It's been a little while since we saw each other with the Black Angels show.
Yeah, it'll be 2 months as of tomorrow.
Oh wow.
It was on 10/15.
Oh my god.
It has been a long time.
Man, God, time flies.
Yeah, so it was neat how we met. We both had press passes for that show. Black Angels the vacant lots opened for them.
Yeah.
930 Club, which is my favorite venue, period, of any place, no matter what size. It was in Hampton Coliseum. It's the 930 Club. It has a lot of special meaning, and that night was very much the same. I think that I said, "Do you have a press pass?" Because I didn't know how to get, not how it worked, but yeah. I don't know. I apologize, but that was
no. It's funny because I thought you were with the Black Angels at that point. I thought you were actually shooting, like the touring photographer with them. So.
Yeah, maybe in my next lifetime. But
you would be both.
That would be something. Concert photographer.
That's my goal. I'm working on that with Black Rebel Motorcycle Club right now, at least for a week.
Jared's, I'm sure you know that Jared knows them.
Oh yeah,
knows them well. And that's actually, I met you in the pit or in the whatever the runway. But
yeah,
after the show, when I went to say goodbye to Jared, then you and your son, I believe, was with you, sporting a vacant lot shirt, nonetheless.
Yeah,
we're talking to him, and you guys knew each other from beforehand, and. Yeah, and then we exchanged numbers.
Yeah,
and you've been going and shooting some shows, and it's always nice to check out other people's work. And I get really excited when there's something to come out, when there's a show to go to. It's just like a night out, and it's. I saw Lightning Bolt. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're a noise band. They've been around since early 2000s, maybe late 90s.
Oh,
They're
cool.
in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a two-player band, and it's drums, and the guy plays a 5-string bass, but I think he winds it with like a banjo string or something. It is just very, very, very loud. I mentioned them because I need it. It's almost like I'm jonesing to go to a show, which is just to see live music.
Yeah, I'm the
I
same
won't
way.
even say that. I don't think that being having that withheld from us for a year and a half, nearly 2 years, helped much either.
No.
So I went and I saw them, Black Cat in DC, which I know that you had gone to not too long ago for the McDonald's band.
Max Sabbath, yeah.
Yes,
and
yes.
Lung was the opener. Lung was really good. So yeah, Black Cat. I've seen some awesome bands there, but I hate shooting there because it's so crowded and you can't move around.
Well, for Black Cat, in terms of what I did there, this band also, both nights, I had to get out of that pit area. It was just too wild.
Yeah.
And I just go away. I shot another show at Black Cat, Laluz and Ghost Funk Orchestra opened for them.
Oh.
And it wasn't clearly they weren't, there wasn't a mosh pit there, but it wasn't bad. I was just going from the periphery. I wasn't able to get like all close up there, but I was able to get some decent shots. The lighting there is not as bad as it was at Auto Bar the next night when I saw them. And
oh, really?
Have you ever been to Auto Bar?
No.
I didn't see the actual publication, but it says that it's like listed as one of the top, 20 venues in the country, blah, blah, blah. But I've been there, I think 3 total times now, maybe 4. I love it. It's just a very tight room, but the lighting there was so terrible, and really? I couldn't grab any decent shots.
Man. All right. So I shoot a lot for a local DC blog called Park Life DC. And
I remember you telling me.
Yeah. Between that and podcast guests, that's how I get all of the media passes. I either know somebody in the band, they've been on the podcast, or it's a band that I like that I haven't had on the podcast, and they're in town, and there's an availability to shoot them. Well, Pussifer came into town, and so that's Maynard James Keenan's one of his side project bands, and it's like electronic music, and I didn't see that anybody had signed up for it, or this show had just been announced or something. So I reached out to the blog and I'm like, I'll shoot that, and like a day or 2 later, they got back to me and they said, well, somebody's already kind of laid claim to the photo pass, but they don't write. If you want to write the article, we'll be happy to get you a pass. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. It's worth just to see the show. So it was one of the weirdest shows I've ever seen. They had aliens running around the stage the entire time. They were only allowed to shoot the first 2 songs, and that's it. And it's at Warner Theater, so it's not a whole lot of great access. So you just the aisles down the side, and it was just, I'm almost glad I didn't get to shoot it, just because it would have been so difficult to run around and get different points of view, different angles within 2 songs to get an accurate representation of the show. And it was a very strange show. Being
able to work closer with bands, I've come to a real appreciation as to what not even touring, but what the daily life of a musician, or not even a musician, but someone in the industry is, in terms of the people who are working at the venues, who are working on the riders weeks in advance when the band is on the road, coordinating everything with tour managers, etc. And as far as I know, there's not a single backstage that's like Motley Crue or anything like that. It's mostly people hanging out and on their cell phones, and like playing like word games and stuff. Yeah. I was hanging out in one of them once, and like they were just on it's got to be so tough to be a musician and a touring musician at that, or any type of artist. It's
definitely not all glamour. It's not sex, drugs, and rock and roll
No.
people think it is. I don't know if it ever was all that. I think that depends on the band. But I just had a Black Rubber Motorcycle Club's tour manager on. Actually, I just released the episode today, and he's like, it's not that at all. He's like, with insurance the way it is and all, he's like, roadies stone cold sober the whole time. He's like, it's just, you can't afford to have missteps. You can't afford to be setting up all this equipment and be, drunk or high doing it. He's like, it's not worth it. You're doing that, we're getting rid of you. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody. I've got a great sponsor that I want to talk to you about. For a long time, I wondered if CBD was something that might benefit me, but I had no idea how to find out. I didn't know what products were available, what companies were reputable, and really even what questions to ask to get the answers I needed. That's why I'm so glad I found Pure Spectrum CBD. They helped me discover what CBD could do for me. They were awesome at determining what my needs were, and they helped me find a starting point. I've started with the tincture and the isolate, but there's also gummies, topicals, mints, and a lot more. Pure Spectrum not only has CBD products for wellness, they also have them for fitness and recovery. There's even CBD for your pets. The website has a ton of information, and chat options are available, and all their products are third-party tested, and the results are available right on their website. So go to PureSpectrumCBD.com to do your own research, and when you check out, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your order. Check them out on Instagram at PureSpectrumHemp, and subscribe to their email list for sales, new products, and updates. Pure Spectrum, refined phytocannabinoid wellness products for all lifestyles. So you've got an interesting entry into this. Now, I kind of want to learn more about how you got into this whole area that you're in. So you started a company that produces audio cables. But before that, I mean, you must have been a big music fan just to get into that in the first place. What was it that made a big impact on you musically? Like as a kid, what made you really get into music?
I bought my first cassette tape, which was New Kids on the Block from Kmart in about 1988.
Oh, wow.
And I was hooked after that. I saved up for the end of fourth grade for a CD player and bought Pearl Jam 10 and $130 Sony Discman the day after the last day of school in fourth grade.
Wow.
And one of my, many, the things that I remember fondly of my youth is when and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, a local record store called Everybody's Records it's still there. I'm sure it's been there forever. And he would take me there, and I was obsessed with music. I liked I was born in 82. So for people, and at least for my cohorts and whatnot, I kind of use what grade were you in when Nevermind came out? And I'm 40. Other 40-year-olds, we just can kind of have a similar appreciation given we're at similar places in our lives. I wouldn't say, alternative music and stuff like that, but I leaned more towards punk, getting into Riot Girl stuff back in 94. But I was introduced by an older mentor when I was, fifth grade, sixth grade, about bands like that. And he gave me mixtapes, and they were under Kill Rock Stars record label. And he would tell me to send them $5 and ask for, 4 7-inches and 2 albums and other stuff, and they did it for a while. And as 11 years old or something like that. Yeah. I don't know, but he got me into that stuff. I've always been into Sonic Youth also since I was in fourth grade. Seeing them, and I saw them a few times, 98, 2004, and then 2009. I believe. Oh, cool. And they were it means a lot, that they're the band that, they do really mean a lot.
Yeah. And they've been around forever.
Yeah. Well, they had been around forever. It just ended poorly, unfortunately. Yeah. But the band breaking up. I got into a lot of Fish in high school, 10th grade on, I started seeing them in like 97. In the Midwest, they don't, it's easier if you're on the East Coast to see a lot of touring bands like that, just because you can go to cities that are a lot closer, not so much in the Midwest. But my folks did let me start going to shows then. And I was pretty much obsessed with that until like I got really into the Grateful Dead in like second year of college or so, in like 2002 or so.
Oh, wow.
And then and that actually really, it'll lead up to it in terms of with Ray Raydecker, where some first sales actually started coming from. But when I moved to Philadelphia after college, and I went to college in Madison, Wisconsin. Philadelphia was the first big city that I've ever lived in. And of course, the big cities is where a lot of the touring bands are going to stop, big or small. So because I got back into that like Kill Rock Stars type stuff, that music, and now there were bands that I could actually see that were coming to the area. And that was exciting. So I got back into going to like shows. I mean, I went to like, punk basement shows when I was 15 and 16 and stuff.
Yeah.
And I personally would love to go to those on a random night. I don't even know like where to go with that anymore. But
yeah, I know. I don't know where that's happening anymore.
I know.
I think it's all happening online now.
I don't know. They need to bring it back.
They do.
And when I moved to Philadelphia and I was back into that stuff, there was a band called the Old Haunts, and I think they released like 2 or 3 albums, and they disbanded. A lot of those bands don't stay together forever. And they had a day off, and I contacted the record. I mean, this is like pre-Instagram, like anything's 2005. Okay. And I said, hey, if I find a place, can I hire the band? And they charged me $150 to have these guys come. I didn't have a phone number for anybody. I didn't have any contact information. A barber shop in South Philadelphia, like on that, it was, I doubt it's even there anymore, but they didn't charge me and let them use the space. They showed up. They showed up. I remember my girlfriend at the time, I don't think I wanted to do it either, but they asked to like sleep at my house. And that's so like, I feel like I would have to do that now, but like at that stage. And also, and I wasn't a punk rocker, let's just say myself, and raised a little more conservatively. Not that I wouldn't be okay with it,
right?
But she even more so. But but I don't blame her. No, but they ended up hanging out with other people that they probably should have been hanging out with to begin with. But they were nice, and I got the obligatory picture taken with the guys.
Nice. I'm
telling you that just because it really, that's kind of the stuff that really gave me a taste of flavor, not of getting closer, being able to to touch musicians. And even though that, and I had like posters made by professional artists and stuff, screen printed, I lost money on the show. The posters cost more than the show did itself. And there was a bonehead colleague of mine at the door who wasn't really collecting money, but it was an amazing experience. I'm really glad that I had that in my life, and that there's little sparks in that when in Ray Raydecker's audio cables, and I started playing bass and in similar time, 5th grade, 6th grade or something like that.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it, and I picked up guitar and learned a bit of that too. And then I put instruments down, and then I just really didn't even pick one up for a long time. The music, no matter which of those phases, the bands that I was telling you about, I was going through, and I wasn't strictly listening to that. I mean, there was a phase at the end of Philadelphia when I lived there, like right before the 2009, where like I listened to Sonic Youth for about 8 months straight, and like that was it.
Wow.
So I kind of, and so it was, I wasn't playing instruments anymore. It's not that I wasn't interested in them. It just listening to music became more accessible, and I had been in school and other stuff too. And it's not that you can't pick up an instrument and just unwind for 30 seconds, which I definitely do now. I have an instrument in my office at both of them. And yeah, it's therapy when you're just to sit there and just like, even just do scales or just like move your fingers around.
Yeah.
And just make nice sounds so I I won't say that I was raised like very technical in terms of like wood shop or stuff like that. I took all that stuff.
Okay.
I didn't know how to do any I didn't know what a soldering iron was really at all, nor how to use anything. I was self-taught. I got back into instruments and gear specifically because my best friend locally here and chief advisor actually for Ray Raydecker, we've known each other now for 10 years, and he's an excellent musician. He's very, very level-headed, provides excellent advice all of the time. And he turned me into a gear fiend. And
really?
Oh my God, it got out of control. And with that,
all right. So how did it get out of control? You got to tell me. What do you mean it got out of control?
There's so much. I just like started to like buy stuff. It was like pathologic at certain points.
Like pedals or like
yeah, like everything.
Nice.
And since July, I have been selling a good majority of it because I have come to and getting rid of, no matter what anybody says, getting rid of something like selling is 100 times better than acquiring something.
Oh, really? I may have to try that. Yes. I should see that.
It really is, and you can't really feel that way until you do it. But you'll see what I mean. It was just too much. There was too much stuff. I didn't need it. I'm not a musician. I enjoy playing instruments. I don't, and so that's the answer as to why with that. I was into pedals and I had a few instruments, and then I wanted to build pedal boards, but instead of wrapping big lengths of the DC, the power cable, like around and around and making bunches of them, I wanted to make the DC cables to length. So I needed to learn how to solder. And yeah, YouTube. I mean, if YouTube was around when you and I were growing up, it would have, I know kids are, they're spoiled.
They really are. They have no idea.
But in my early work, in terms of like my technical skills for like the solder joints and everything themselves, was garbage. And I mean, practice makes perfect in terms of doing stuff. Just go figure. I started to put together pedal boards, making patch cables and such. Before I even picked up a soldering iron, I was purchasing nicer cables that had the same sheath that all of mine have. It's called Tech Flex is the name of the material.
Okay.
It's I have over 60 colors, and that's like what the instrument cables are like covered with, like an outer covering. So I saw, and I was buying them from like Australia and paying an arm and a leg for them just because I didn't know where else to look or get these things. And then I was like, you know what, let me just try to do this myself. And not only just with instrument cables, but kind of like the theme along the way is like, let me find first of all, what am I going to use it for? Who's going to want it? Am I going to make one of these in my entire lifetime? Or is this going to be a top seller? I then vet the hardware, the actual like plugs and whatnot. And there's a lot of different stuff, and I'm super, super picky. The majority, if not almost all of the stuff that I use is a very like rugged industrial feel. There's a ton of different brands there's several brands of like the connectors, the plugs, but my whole thing and that I've turned in not simply just surface level aesthetic, but who wants something if it's, I wanted a forum to put my I don't want to say creativity, but just like what I needed to do to keep myself busy. I was at a very bored time in my life also, and that's also why I needed to keep myself occupied.
Oh, okay.
So that's how it happened. And after the patch cables, and it wasn't even patch cables, it's just this DC cables because I've been buying that other stuff. I started toying around, and those wood handles that you see on the cables.
Yeah. That
part itself is from the company that I buy my regular plugs from. I don't know what happens in my brain when I saw that. I mean, it honestly just would have, but I got some of those parts and I started making stuff. And I mean, they were crude prototypes of what became the main cable, the signature cable, so to say, with that thing. I make something with everything, but those are kind of, and it's not that other people don't have them or couldn't buy them, but it's just, incorporated it from the start.
I like the flush of the that right angle, it's like so flush to the pedal board or to the effect. That's something that, and I'm not a professional musician, so I'm not out looking for this kind of thing, but I haven't seen anything like that before. So nothing that flush to the effects pedal. But I got
you're talking about the patch cable hardware.
Yes.
Yeah, there's several. I know what you're talking about now. I thought you were referring to the instrument cable at first. Yeah, there's several different types of products, and a lot of people have the thinner type ones, but vetting the different hardware. I'm sorry, you were saying?
Oh no, I wanted to ask you how you came up with the name for the company, Ray Raydecker.
Oh,
because that's really interesting.
So it wasn't the original name for the company. The original name for the company was really corny. And my dad did some searching and said that there's a company that makes some audio speakers in Russia that has a similar name. So I pulled the plug. I already had like the website name and all of that other stuff. And it was hosted through GoDaddy. And then when he told me that, I was like, all right. And this is what was the name? Things with Russia. Contrasty audio.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to get Russian people mad at you.
Well, this is even before all that other stuff. Yeah. So, and I like, not even just with like the painted and stuff, it was just colors in general. I like things that contrast and it just allows things to pop better. And I like that. And that's kind of where my mind was with that. But it was a crummy name for many reasons, one of which also, and I won't say it was a crummy name for this reason, and this also is part of the reason why it went with Ray Raydecker, is that I didn't want it to have audio or cable in the title. And I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be like, like that's a Panama Jack shirt or something like that.
Right.
Like, that's a Raydecker cable. So GoDaddy let me change the website name for that. What Ray Raydecker was before that is, and I wish it was my own creation. My father's an ex-friend of his who's just, this guy's totally shredded. He's very, very funny. And my father would go to his house, and he's a perennial bachelor. Not that means anything, but he would sit there. My dad didn't drink, but my dad's friend would sit there and he would get loaded, and before they would go out to dinner, and they'd hang out for a bit, and then they decided where they wanted to go and eat, and then his friend would call, and the host or hostess would say, hello, and he goes, yes, can I have a reservation for two for Ray Raydecker? And they would say, table for two for Mr. Ray Decker? No, Ray Raydecker. And it was just, in this Seinfeld type banter would ensue. And it
stuck with you too.
Yeah, no, that too, for sure. But my dad says that if we send him one of the sweatshirts or something in the mail, that he'll die of a coronary right there on the butt. But yeah, no, he was just an intense guy. But
well, it made an impact for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of things I like to, it's been a platform for me to express myself, and tying back into why, music has been an extremely important part of my life. And I mentioned all this gear and stuff. My friend, same guy who took me down the dark path, he said this phrase, and then I just like took it to heart. It's like, I enjoy the rigging more than the gigging. And he's an excellent musician too. I'm not an excellent musician. I didn't play for like 20 something years, and he never stopped. But I'm being into gear, and just I used to watch a ton of like pedal videos and stuff like that, but I don't really watch that stuff anymore. But I just like, if you follow sports well enough that you can have an appreciation and talk to people about like the players and stuff in general.
Yep. Same
thing with like pedals and music industry stuff, just because, and part of I didn't know that working with musicians or even having any contact with them would even be a reality. I never even dreamt of it before the company started. It was really just something to do at the end of the night, go in my garage, make a cable if I felt like it, and that was it. And it still pretty much is that way. But I won't say supplemented, but it's another, and this, leads into all the concert photography and other, opportunities like that, is to be able to work with bands. And I've given out a ton of free cables. I've also had several different musicians who I've given cables to who have bought cables from me, and that really means the most.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I don't, it's not that I don't like it, I don't want to give stuff away if I don't have to, but
right.
That's my advertisement. And I don't pay myself for my time, and I never pay myself for my time, but I enjoy what I'm doing, and it gives me a lot of joy.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So I got a question for you. You mentioned giving cables to musicians and all. Who was the first person you were able to give a cable to? Almost maybe almost like an endorsee, or who was the first person that really made an impact?
This is what I'll answer your question for sure, but this is what I have to say.
Sure.
Is that, and one of my main mentors works for a pretty well-known boutique pedal company, and he was a mentor. We were friends before even Ray Raydecker started. I mean, he's somebody that I send prototypes to check out and all this other stuff.
Okay.
Someone in the music industry. Musicians get a lot of free stuff, and the larger the scale, the more stuff that they're getting. And the reason why I say that it's my advertising and I'm okay with that, it's true. It's exciting to see that if somebody has your cable or something like that in my instance on stage, but man, is your heart going to get broken if you give somebody something and they're not using it.
Right.
But therein lies that there's no endorsee. There never will be. There's several different friends of the company, people that I've worked with and stuff like that, but I'm not paying anybody, nor are, and if they want to get stuff from me, they can, but it's also a give and take. There's some bands that, and artists in particular, that have just been more than grateful and use the gear all the time. It's been in music videos. It's been on webcasts and stuff. And it's thrilling to see it there. So I said that I'd never even thought about working with musicians and stuff. I started the company in January of 2020, 8 weeks before COVID stuff.
Oh, wow.
I didn't tell my wife about it before I started it. It's an LLC. I incorporated it. The signature logo is trademarked, all of that good stuff. So I didn't tell her about it. I did it because I needed to do it at that stage of my life. A lot was going on. Okay. I needed to be able to channel stuff elsewhere.
Right. That makes sense.
I mentioned Fish, and I was super, super obsessed with Fish in 18 and 19 in particular. And when you're married and have 2 kids, it's really difficult to go to shows. And my wife is very, very lenient about how many shows and stuff I get to go to. And I'm very grateful for that.
I'm the same boat.
Since it's become very clear how important this music and live music that are in my life.
Yeah.
So Fish's resident photographer, his name is Renee Humer. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He shot so many great people. He's out of Austria. I never met him, but we had contact at a couple of his shows in 19, and I ended up buying some of his art, and then that was it. That was right before Ray Raydecker started, and then just for the hell of it, I reached out and I was like, hey, check this out. And I sent him the first one that I made when I got the custom heat shrink, for when I was real, not just using blank stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he reacted to it. He said, he liked it. I didn't ask him there at the time. And so Fish went to Mexico, Riviera Maya, 2 weeks before COVID. So at the end of February. And so he also shoots Trey, and he also shoots Dave Matthews Band. He's Dave Matthews' resident photographer.
Oh, okay.
I knew that he was going to be at some show shooting Trey right before they went to Mexico that was in Colorado. And I patiently talked to Renee about, I don't know, I kind of eased myself in there, and I got an address for him. I was able to get a package to him at his hotel in Colorado. He says that he gave him the trays tech. I don't know if any of this really happened or not. But, and then he just told me at a later time that, the band liked the cables, but once again, he might just be nice. But they never used them, and not that I've seen or heard of. But that takes you back to, if you're going to offer somebody something, they don't have to use it. Like,
Right.
It was a little hard to swallow. I won't say at first, but I had a couple of reality checks, and my friend Tommy, who works for that company doesn't give anything away, and other companies don't. Someone who works for Telefunken, they don't give artists discounts and stuff. They'll, if an artist buys something, then they will send them some extra stuff, and that's different.
Okay.
But it varies, and this is not my main source of income. It's really not a source of income, but unfortunately it's looking more and more like an expensive hobby as the days go by. But it brings me a lot of happiness there.
Oh, that's awesome.
But but it's not about, it's neat to, is someone going to look at that and be like, hey, I want whatever. Most people don't even notice the damn thing.
Right.
A lot of people don't even know the guitars that they have or going to shows, whatever. It's for gearheads and stuff like that who nerd out about this stuff. But I wanted it similar to like one of those at the shore, an ice cream place that has like 60 different flavors or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have every single color of that stuff available. And I wanted it to just be like over the top instead of having like 6, 10, 12 like other companies had. I was like, get every single one.
Wow.
And it turned into just a canvas for me to just explore. I never did social media whatsoever before the company.
Oh, really?
And I have mixed thoughts about it, but from the start, it was kind of like the only way that I could even approach getting my name out there or to try to establish contact. I never assumed the name, by the way. I mean, a lot of people, when they contact me, they'll be like, hey, Ray and stuff. But when I reach out to someone, I always say like, hi, my name is Ben. This is the name of the company, is what I say. And it's just a brand name. But once again, if they want to think what they want to think about it, that's fine. But I've never said that that's my name. Nor will I.
One of the cool things about the social media is, like you said, you use the colors and the wooden connector and everything as a creative canvas. And I think things like Instagram and all help companies like yours out in that fact. It helps that you separate yourself from, just over the counter cables that you can get at Guitar Center. People see that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't know how many people act on that. And the reason is that the cables, people have no problem spending $200 on a guitar, $150 on a guitar pedal. They don't want to spend $150 on a cable.
Right.
The majority of the time they're going to, in less than a year, or probably even less than that most of the time, for people who are like diehard gearheads who are like living and breathing on reverb and just like checking where their package is 4 times a day. If that, no, that's low. Yeah, they'll flip that pedal and and get something else or whatever. The cable would last them their entire life. Everything I make is guaranteed. There's nearly 900 instrument cables out there.
Wow.
I never counted how many patch cables, or I never even considered counting. Out of that, I've probably had maybe 10 stuff sent back, like because of like 8 maybe. Like things sent back, and I fix them. I send them back to them, and that's one of the nicest things about the cable business is that you can always just cut a little bit off and just redo it, and it's not like the majority. Depending on what we're talking about, if there's little patch cables like on the pedal board, the most expensive part for those is the connector itself, whereas when you start talking about instrument leads with copper wire that is nearly 85 cents a foot, and then you start talking about 16, 25 feet, that's where your majority of your cost is, understandably so. Plus you have the price of connectors and such. So, and then the even more difficult is to not use cheap stuff and not be too expensive. in terms of that. And there's a lot of different other cable makers out there. I guarantee that their cables pass signal as just as well as mine and sound just as well as mine, and vice versa. They look different. They're constructed differently. It's, Tommy Hilfiger or Nautica type of thing. It's just, you get what you want. If you want to pay for a nicer non-bargain bin Guitar Center cheapy cable, and every single cable company offers lifetime guarantees and stuff like that. It's who wouldn't want that? So I mean, and if you pay good money for something, even if it was that pedal, you're going to flip whatever. If something broke, you'd want it to be able to be fixed.
Exactly.
Something that also attracted me in terms of, and this also ties back to gear and stuff like that, is that before I even got into the cable making process, I had a couple, when I was acquiring gear, there were a few different people that I was creators, manufacturers themselves, that I was able to access and talk to about certain things. And I really, really, as a consumer and on that side of the fence, I really, really got into that. And when I was able to talk to Mike Saldano, who used to own Saldano amps, Bill Wickersham, who owns and is the founder of Alembic, a very well-known and well-respected instrument company out in California. I had conversations with these people just talking about like transistors, and it was like sitting in a physics lecture. It was awesome. And when someone's into my stuff or wants to talk about it or geek out about cables and stuff like that, I get as into it also. And that's why it's not that it's not work. And like, yes, I'm here to represent the company, and it is a business. But when I talk to the musicians, when I talk to, especially, I never ask about like the music stuff, like ever. We'll talk about anything else besides that.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's not what we're talking to each other. You know what I mean? Like, so they don't get music, whatever. They want to talk to cables, whatever. But I like talking about kids and stuff, and just like other stuff with just showing them that I'm just hopefully a little bit normal.
Yeah. So each of these cables they're all handmade?
Everything from raw parts in my garage.
And are you the only one doing it?
The painters, there's two painters, and they do the painting, but besides that, I do everything. That's the social media,
oh my gosh.
But I'm a control freak. I've had a staff of 5 or 6 people before, and sit around because I poorly manage. But in this instance with this, and because of the product, I'm putting myself out there just like a musician does when they go out on stage in terms of that. And I need that to be as good as that can be to represent myself. Even though there was just a shred of thought in my head that, oh my God, what if Fish comes out on the stage just because they were the first ones to get something? And I was like, what if the damn thing breaks? And several people have like plugged it in, like, what if I had like given it to them before a show? But I would never do that. I mean, like, maybe if you can test it, but like that just takes a lot of. I mean, I don't know, but and a lot of people just don't care about that stuff. It's just a cable, and that's also why they're just like, why would I spend money on it? And I don't care what it looks like. I don't care if it passes signal right, and if it breaks, I'll get another one, and that's okay.
But now,
but those and those people I still want to talk to about music and kids, but I'm not going to try to sell those people cables. Exactly.
But you get people like some of the friends of Ray Raydecker, like Black Angels, Vacant Lots. They do care about the sound, so they're not going to use something that's, I don't
disagree.
A bad quality. And I'm looking. I mean, guys like another friend of the company, Oliver Ackerman from A Place to Bury Strangers and Death by Audio. And I mean, if he likes your stuff, that's a huge endorsement. Forgive the term, but because I mean they're a huge noisy band, and he builds bespoke guitar pedals. He's looking for quality, so that's huge to have him as a friend of the company.
So I got involved with Levitation, the festival based out of Austin, Texas, the sister company to Reverberation Appreciation Society.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of Alex Moss of the Black Angels and Christian are, I believe, two of the original four like founders of it. So like they're the owners of Levitation, and in addition to Reverberation Appreciation Society, which is the record label of these entities. So Alex, I went to Levitation at the end of 2021, in October of 2021, and he got it so that I could get a booth at Stubbs, which is the largest venue there.
Oh, cool.
And the second night there, it was a great bill. It was Ringo Death Star at Stubbs, A Place to Bury Strangers, Kikiaku Moyo, and then Black Angels, and it was just really one of the the best evenings. So I watched a bit of the A Place to Bury Strangers show, and then there was an area where like the vendors would be able to like look for a little bit and then walk back to their areas. Okay. And then I looked and I saw Oliver a little bit of ways, and I introduced myself to him, and him and John Fedowitz, also of A Place to Bury Strangers in Ceremony East Coast, they came to the booth that I was at and just like looked at the stuff, and that was the most significant and meaningful part of that weekend, and pretty much it really spoke a lot. And I was able to hook up with them back in June of this year. I didn't even have like my bigger lens at that time. It was like the first like there was no press pass, but like, and I didn't really know how it worked for certain smaller venues, but Oliver gave me a pass.
That's awesome.
And he said some extremely nice things that I will never forget that day. And we swapped, but he purchased 2 cables that him and John use. And
oh, that is awesome.
Those pictures that I used to put out, like, not all sorts of pictures and stuff, but I've, especially now getting into the concert photography stuff, like I love to be able to include a picture that I've put on that, and I don't really display it. Otherwise, there's a lot of like, and some bands don't want me to put any of the pictures that I've taken up on like Instagram or whatever, and I definitely respect that.
Yeah.
But they don't care about me, my photos for fun.
Yeah.
A cable company. It's like, what is this guy talking about? Why is he showing pictures of Ty Segall? But
well, the picture you have of Oliver on the website is brilliant. I love that shot.
Thank you. I didn't, and that's what I'm sure you know exactly what I'm about to get at. When you look through like the I don't know like what your process is, no pun intended, for when you like get home from a show or whatever and go through your pictures or however you do it. I went through the one that you're talking about. I went through and I like 4 months afterwards, maybe even 5 months afterwards, and I was like, really? Did I see this one? I'm sure you've had those moments where like you're like, how did I overlook this one?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So like all the pictures that I take of the Ray Raydecker stuff and stuff like that, after I get on my computer and like chronicleize and all of that stuff, I just delete them off of the computer, off of the camera memory. So I don't delete like actual pictures from real pictures. Yeah. So the photography and stuff is pretty self-taught too. And it's not that I don't know anything about it. I'm seriously just hacking it up like I did with the cables in my garage at first. I mentioned earlier about the Grateful Dead serving an importance. That Ray Raydecker I was making no sales. COVID had just hit. People weren't really spending money. I had I was marketing myself more, or not marketing, but I was spending more time talking to artists versus musicians, which doesn't really make sense. And no wonder I wasn't getting any sales. But this thing started from a seed in my head, like 4 months before all of this. COVID hits. My best friend that I keep on talking about, also very into Grateful Dead, and a lot of people who are into Grateful Dead want to recreate Jerry Garcia rigs. What does that mean? That means that a guitar with an onboard effects loop, it's called OBEL, OBEL. What that means is that after the vibrations from the strings hit the pickups, before it goes out of the guitar, it's going to go through the effects loop and then go out of the guitar. So that's going to leave the effects sound more unadulterated. And that's a big part of it. And then there's also other a Macintosh power amp is pretty much like the sound for that tone and what a lot of people are using. And then a JBL 120 speaker. So with those types of things, my friend Eric, he needed an RCA to 1/4-inch cable. And like a lot of things when it comes to this, and this is way before the company, like a lot of things before like this, he was on this Grateful Dead musicians forum, and I didn't even know what these things were for in terms of like, what's an RCA cable for? Like, why am I using it? Like, I've like seen stuff like that before, but I didn't really know what it was. And that has kind of continued, it continued well into the second and even further year into this when I started to figuring out stuff that I was making stuff that people wanted. And that's where a lot of the ideas and stuff have come from with a professional or someone who wants to have something different made. There's over 80 different products that I make. I mean, one thing, I don't think that anybody's going to pick some of them and stuff, but they're there. And if something's not roadworthy and doesn't look good, it ain't leaving the garage. And it's been a heck of a ride. And I've also learned to balance it a lot better with my personal life and my home life than I did the first year and a half or so. And because I was really neglecting a lot of things that I should not have been neglecting.
I've been there.
Yeah.
With this podcast, with the photography. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's difficult.
It is.
And at the end of the day, even all this stuff's or whatever, the family's more important.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
absolutely. And you know, it's good to know that I'm not the only one with those issues, but I'm also not the only one who's got a family who's very supportive of this thing. Because, you know, like your cables, this podcast doesn't make me a whole lot of money, if any. You know, every once in a while I get a sponsor. I'm a part of a podcast network. Every couple of months I'll get a deposit of like $15. You know, so it's not paying the bills.
But you wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy doing it.
Exactly.
And that's, yeah. I mean, let's just be happy that these aren't our day jobs.
Exactly.
And that we found something that we enjoy doing. That brings us a lot of joy. And even though that my wife, I won't say she hates Ray Raydecker. I mean, she certainly did, just especially because I wasn't forthcoming about its inception. But
well, lesson learned, right?
It may take me a few more times, but she does see how happy it makes me with things, and things have. She's become more accepting of it as I've become less obsessive about it, because it was like, and I don't know, in the back of my head, the first couple of years, I was like, you know what, this is where I have to put the time in. I have to get everything right, and I can't just put this in the back burner. It was like a child, everything for a while, and
yeah.
And now I'm much more laid back about that.
And that's exhausting too. It's, you know,
I was not sleeping.
Yeah. I was doing the same thing with recording, editing, and I still do all the recording and editing, but I have a much more laid back approach to it. You know, I instead of editing straight through and getting a show done, you know, I try to set time limits now. I'm going to get done by this time, and if I'm not finished I'm at wherever I'm at this time, and I'm putting it down. And much like the concert photography,
same about what you just said, but like same with my working too.
Yeah,
but you just got to you're just cool with it then.
Yeah.
I feel you.
And I don't know about you, when after you get done with shooting a show. When I get home, I immediately download everything off of my camera onto my computer, and I have to get at least one photo done, and no matter what time it is, and then I can go to bed. That's the only other thing I get really obsessive about. I want to get at least one shot edited. Yeah,
I definitely feel that, and it's also what I have to say to that is this: just like I said, that selling gear is more fun than buying gear.
Yeah.
Treat yourself like a kid on Christmas morning and wait until the next morning to do it. You will wake up and you'll just have this extra smile on your face when you wake up, and you're like, oh, I get to look at those. And I mean, yeah, I think that most people probably look at like some other, I mean, I look at through like set breaks and stuff like that. I'll look through the other ones,
yeah,
and stuff like that. But And if there's one that you're really, really excited about, like that or whatever, and then that one will pretty much like burn itself into my head on the way home, and I'll get really excited about it. I'll get excited like my son does about a Lego set.
Yeah. Yeah.
In some ways, truthfully.
All right. I'm going to try that. I'm going to make myself wait the next show.
Well, I don't always do that, but I have, and I've enjoyed it because of that. And that extra smile that I was referring to was really me. And it can be you.
Yeah.
It can also be you.
I'm looking at the website right now, and I'm blown away by stuff. I'll tell you what, when I'm going to have to order an XLR. I'm going to get an XLR cable for my podcast setup. I'll have to order that from you so I can be a friend of Ray Raydecker.
That's so kind. Thank you.
And how can people find out more about your products? How can people follow you? And not only the Ray Raydecker products, but also your concert photography. I know you mentioned social media and all.
Yeah, the concert, it's at Ray Raydecker, RayRayDecker. I don't consider myself a concert photographer. I like doing it, and I do like to share it sometimes, but it's not, even though it's like, oh, but that's not good. But a lot of the stuff that I put out there it's more of what I'm into, and yet it happens to be a cable company. A lot of things that I am and are into is cable company and musicians and ones that I've worked with. And now that COVID's not like it was, and musicians are touring again, and that I have established some relationships with them, then I can do that. The concert photography only started earlier this year just because I never even considered it beforehand, and it just sounded like something fun, and it is. It's so awesome. It's so much easier for concert. I mean, there's a lot of factors, of course, like what you were describing about the Warner, and shooting sports is much more difficult.
Oh yeah,
shooting concerts. It's a lot more difficult. I practice a lot with my son's soccer and stuff like this, and it is so hard.
I used to do that too for a few studios and all, and it's tough. It depends on the sport. I mean, basketball is a little easier than something like football, and baseball is possibly one of the easiest ones. But anything with like soccer, football, anything that's on a wider field or court, that's tough. All right.
Oh, so
yeah.
Yes, the at Ray Raydecker is the Instagram. There's a lot of content there. I don't have a specific part for concert photography. I'm not going to have it on the website. I do have to break it back down to, this is a cable, company and stuff.
Right.
But like incorporating those pictures onto some of Ray's friends that gives me, that's satisfying for me, in addition to whatever I might choose to share on my own in terms of that. But there's real concert photographers people can check out. Going back also to how accessible creators were before I even considered this,
mm-hmm.
and how much I enjoyed that. And as much as I'm having fun doing this, I knew that the musician, when you make the customer, the musician, or anybody, the hero, and you're the guide, and you're simply just, get them there, then it will work a lot of times. And there's a lot of other things, luck, perseverance.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of luck, but patience has been really important too, about like stuff. And like, if you start to get like really antsy, and you just got to let things happen in terms of like with industry stuff. You don't want to come on too strong or anything like that. Exactly.
That'll scare people off a lot more than you'll get people coming to you. And I just want to say that I know you downplay your photography a bit, but I really like it. I've really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
The shot of Alex Moss from the Black Angels on the Friends of Ray, that is an amazing shot. I love that shot so much.
Thank you. I do too.
So, well, look, I know I've kept you for a while, and I really enjoyed meeting you the night with the Black Angels Vacant Lots.
Yeah.
And I figured if Jared from Vacant Lots and the guys from the Black Angels are using your stuff, it's got to be high quality, because I know Jared a little bit. He's been on the podcast a couple of times, and also I know he's a huge audiophile. So I know if he's using your equipment, it's got to be top notch. So that's why I wanted to reach out and have you on the podcast. And
thank you. I really appreciate the gesture.
And I'm going to suggest everybody check out, if you're a up and coming musician, an established musician, definitely check out Ray Raydecker, because it is really high quality. And how often can you say what you have is handmade? I mean, like, good grief. Thank you. And thank you so much for spending so much of your time explaining the process and talking to me about the products and about the concert photography, because I am always thrilled to geek out about concert photography.
Definitely.